Hi, and welcome to another practice of Beyond Darkness, Matter in Motion. This is just to remind you that the practice is set in darkness, so try to darken your space as much as that is possible for you. Close the blinds, all doors, switch off electric lights. And ideally, if you can't make your space completely dark, then please wear a sleeping mask or a scarf around your eyes and try to dig in as deeply as possible into that darkness space. Also, it's completely fine to use your living room, your bedroom, kitchen, bathroom for this practice. It's completely up to you. Although I would have to say that this particular time, somewhere where you have a little bit of room around you to stretch your legs and upper body, that might be ideal. But if not, you can make it work. Do not worry. Before we start, please prepare something to write on and to write with. I recommend, if you do this practice regularly, to have a little notebook that you can keep coming back to, also that you can keep looking into actually from time to time. And if not, a piece of paper is just fine. And one last thing before we start. These notes are highly important to Nana and I, and generally to everyone who practices, because the more material and feedback we gather from you, the more we're able to understand better how the practice works for others, for you, and how we can incorporate each other's experiences and developments and questions and words into the future practice. Yeah, so I would advise you to switch off the lights if you're ready and find yourself a comfortable spot to begin from. Today specifically, we will be focusing on play, silliness, and failure. And hopefully lots of fun movements and experiences are coming up in the process. So what is play? Play involves almost any activity that is not serious or work, and it often happens to be spontaneous. It occurs mostly within a protected context where the player feels safe, and thus it is usually quite rewarding. Behavior patterns are used in unusual forms or combinations, which applies both to thoughts and physical actions. And during play, players are largely insulated from the consequences of their behavior. So, play is actually an important form of behavior because it facilitates creativity and innovation in the natural world and human society. It affects the biological evolution by enabling humans, animals, and organisms in general to adapt rapidly to new environments, making us more resistant to stress. It helps us enlarge our behavioral repertoire, which makes us more flexible and better able to adjust to new conditions, and generates creative solutions to challenges because in play, many things are examined from different viewpoints. It also enhances our ability to recognize kin as well as cooperate and coexist well with one another. And it provides physical exercise that facilitates the development of our muscles and generally fine-tunes the neuromuscular system. However, despite all its advantages, play is mostly associated with childhood rather than adult life. Adults still play and still want to play, yet they tend to do it less often and less carefree than children. So we would like to actively encourage playtime, both physically and mentally, and adding to it a zest of humor and silliness to enhance our creativity and our approach to our bodies and movements. Personally, I still find it quite difficult to really dive into the silly self. So if you're feeling a bit reserved or shy about it, please don't worry. Part of the practice is to understand ourselves better and slowly grow our abilities safely and in communion with others. And part of the practice is allowing ourselves to fail as often as we need, actually to embrace our failures and the playfulness of failing and looking silly in the process. So, here is a little fun fact by play theorist Brian Sutton Smith that I found worth sharing. Playing face games as parents with your child has been linked to developing an aptitude for imaginative writing, while joy and laughter, often a natural reaction to play, establish the basis for expressive performances. I think that sounds pretty cool. I mean, as we know, storytelling and play have been a big part of human development and culture, knowledge formation, and thus, I think honing this skill, honing this ability is quite useful and important in our daily lives as much as the development of our existence on this earth. And as Johann Huizinga says, genuine, pure play is one of the main bases of civilization. So, are you ready for some playtime? I hope you are. So to start, I would suggest that we begin with a shaking exercise, which means we're gonna wake up our body and we're gonna wake up our blood flow, circulation, and build a little bit of momentum, the cardio, but also we dive into the beginnings of playtime and the beginnings of silliness. For that, ideally you would stand up and feel a strong connection between the ground and your feet. Or you can also try it sitting down if that works better for you. So, imagine standing on springs. So there is a spring under each sole of your feet, or alternatively under each cheek of your ass. And now slowly start to bounce off on these springs. Keep your knees a little bit bent. Keep the toes connected to the floor and bounce up your heels up and down. Bouncing up, just bounce. Don't do it too fast. For now, just bounce in whatever rhythm comes naturally to you. And bend your knees a little bit more. And bounce a little bit faster. Feel how the bouncing of your heels, of these imaginary springs under your feet, are affecting your entire body. You are not just shaking the flesh, you're also shaking the bones, and they flop around the room. This might be especially obvious for your fingers and your arms, but really try to build the energy up from the ground to the entire body. So don't clench your jaw. Feel that your mouth is relaxed. Maybe open up your mouth a little bit. And feel this bouncing energy flowing all over you. And extend your arms more and more to the side and raise them up while bouncing. And bounce a little bit faster as well. Let it grow all over your body and raise your hands over your head and let them bounce up there. And shake them all the way down, back down to where you started from. You can put them down to the front or to the side, or two arms in a different direction. Just shake them out and feel your head bobbing back and front or side to side, whatever is the natural reaction of this bounce. And feel that you're bouncing just even more. Maybe you need to open up your legs for that just a little bit more and bounce really heavily and really quickly and make some funny faces while you're bouncing. And add some sound. You're bouncing and you're just allowing sound to travel through your body out of your open mouth. So that might sound really silly. For example, just go with your flow, with your sounds that come out naturally. Play with the limbs that are shaking. You can lift up one leg or the other. Feel this shake, freeing your tension from your body and becoming warm and hot and liberated. Release all the stress and tension. Shake it out, throw it into the space. Start walking like that in the space, making funny shapes with your body, making funny shapes within your face, and making funny sounds. Just let them come out. Enjoy the silliness. Enjoy the heat. Enjoy the sweat that might be building up. Enjoy your hair being all disheveled and in disarray. Don't feel that you need to control any part of your body. Just shake and bounce. And gradually let it grow a little bit smaller, but keep shake walking through the space. And decrease a little bit more the bouncing. Slow down your walk, but keep moving, keep it going, just with less energy. And gradually let it come to the smallest movements possible. Feel the exhaustion. And slowly start to catch your breath. Okay, and come to a halt. Come to your starting position. And take a deep breath in through your nose. And exhale through your mouth. Inhale growing the balloon inside your belly really big. And when you exhale, push the air out and let it shrivel, shrink in size. And one more, adding a sound really loud. And release. Once more, with your arms, just bring them all the way up. When you inhale, inhale, arms over your head. Hold and exhale, bring your arms back down, maybe even bend your knees. Again, inhale, arms up, reach for the sky, the sun, the moon, the light that is over your head. And when you exhale, lay down on your belly. So exhale, bend your knees, grab the floor and lay down. And inhale, turning onto your back. And exhale. Inhale, turn to the other side. So you just rolled over your shoulder onto your belly again, and when you exhale, come all the way up to standing. Okay. Now, let's do a little mental drawing exercise. Let's start with, what do we want to draw today? Okay, let's start with a flower. Any flower that you know best. In your mind, just start drawing this particular flower that you chose. Now, I encourage you not to draw it in a realistic way, although you can do that because in your imagination you have all the superpowers in the world and you can become the best painter that has ever lived. But let's try to make this particular flower part of our own world. So how would it look like if you would have decided to create this flower? Like, if you could choose the aesthetics of this flower and the size and the colors and the smell, what would it look like? Just try it out. And if that's a bit too hard, don't worry. Go with an image that you had in your mind and just take 1 minute to draw this imaginary flower. So keep trying to draw this flower inside your head. If you haven't done so, close your eyes for easier maybe visualization and just try to think of details, right? Whatever you would think of while creating this version of this flower. Okay, start to finish up and then take a mental photograph of this particular drawing that you just made. Okay, great. What we will do next is to redraw that flower that you just created, and we will not redraw it mentally, well, kind of, but we will redraw it with our body. Now, let's start with our pelvic area. Imagine that you have a brush or a pencil that is coming out of your butt, or at least your butt cheeks or wherever you want, and start drawing the flower that you just drew in your imagination with this imaginary pencil or brush that's sticking out from your body, and draw it in the space. Now, that might seem particularly difficult for some, and that's fine. You will not have to draw a beautiful, wonderful flower, but still try to visualize the flower or recall your mental picture. Bring it in front of you, bring it into the space, and draw it now with your pelvis. I also advise you to think of the space as a canvas, which means that it is a 360-degree space. It is not only two-dimensional. So you can really shape this particular flower into the space as you like. It can have curves. It doesn't have to be all straight. And it can be, up the wall, on the ceiling, on the floor. It can be stretched over whatever furniture that is in the room. Just explore the drawing of the flower with your pelvis. And in case you are not smiling already because you might be looking or feeling silly, then I encourage you to put a smile on your face while you do it. It is absolutely helpful and I think more fun. So put on a smile and move that bum around the space. Okay, let's finish up. I mean, you do not have to finish the entire drawing, but we will continue either with the exact same one that you have just already been working on, or starting from scratch somewhere else in the space, and we redraw the flower. But this time we have a pencil or a brush or several sticking out of our head. You can choose if that's the top of your head, your eyes, your nose, the neck, the ears, or all of the above. You can also alternate between them and draw into the space. Again, don't forget that your space is your canvas. It is a 360 canvas. It is not just in front of you or above you or behind you or under you. It is all around you. So get drawing on that flower with your head. And put that smile on your face, don't forget. Okay, I hope that was interesting. I hope that you managed to draw some beautiful flowers into the space. And maybe let's make it a little bit more complex, and let's use the shoulders and knees as shoulders and knees as a drawing utensil. So imagine brushes, pencils, pens, anything with which you can draw, sticking out of your body. And now you can go wild. Like, you don't have to draw the flower. You can draw, I don't know, an entire landscape. You can draw a house. You can draw an imaginary world. You can draw a portrait or a self-portrait, or just go, I don't know, just go wild. Just paint the space. You live in your painting right now. You are part of that painting, but you are making the painting come to life with your imagination while you're drawing it. So give it color, give it shape, give it energy, give it size, and maybe even paint the smell and paint the sensations of that particular imaginary painting. Use your body to move. Move your body to paint. And maybe even think about painting not just in 2 dimensions, but 3. So almost like a sculpture. You are in this world, in this painting. You can paint from the front, the back, the top, anything that you want. It just becomes anything that is maybe otherwise impossible now might become possible. Just really go for it. And don't stop smiling. Do not frown, because you don't have to worry about making a mistake, because in your imagination there are no mistakes. And even if you did one, even if you spilled a pot of paint, well, you can step into it and leave traces all over, and that might become part of it, or you just mentally erase it. Just play around. Your imaginary masterpiece. Add your finishing touches. Add whatever is necessary. And when you are done, take a mental photo of it and store it in your mental photo album or your masterpiece collection of paintings. Okay. Breathe it out and shake it off your body. Just like take a moment to take a sip of water or come back to the present, the here, the now. And let's focus on our body more in particular, like the shape of the body. Let's start with the head and the face. Start touching the back of your head and explore the skin and the hair. Like, what is the texture and what is the shape of your head and the length of the hair? Touch the neck and go up to the cranium and then start touching your forehead and your nose and your cheeks, your mouth, your throat. Just touch the skin and feel the texture and the elasticity and the muscles that lay beneath it and the bones that you can feel. Okay, good. Now you have sort of like an idea of your face today. Now what we want to do is we want to mess it up. We want to create a new facial shape today. So just think of your face as this block of clay that looks like you, and you are going to turn it into whatever you want it to become. So reshape your face. So squeeze it, knead it. Really use your fingers to dig into your face, your entire head actually. Just try to reform it. Maybe it becomes like a flat pizza shape, or maybe you give it many bumps, or like a rock, like a big rock. Or maybe it just becomes something completely absurd and abstract that you have never seen before. Or maybe you create a new face that is still a human face, but it's just not the face that you know, that you are looking usually at every day. So just go for it. Reshape, remodel. And for those of you that are not so keen on creating lots of details, you can start moving down all over your body and reshaping your entire body. But for those of you that really want to give a new face that is very precise, you can also stick to just remodeling, reshaping, re-kneading your face. But please feel free to go all through the body, knead into it. It's a big piece of clay and you are just turning it into the best version of you that you want it to be today. And that really doesn't have to be a human body. Also, maybe think about, where would your ears be if you even have ears as this creature or as this new you? And do you have limbs, or where do you smell from? If you smell from, do you still have a nose, or do you have any sort of different kind of smelling system? What are your senses doing? Where are your senses located? Or your sensorial organs, where are they located? On your body, on the new you. Take another minute to just refashion yourself into a new shape, into a new version of you. Okay, and as this new you, I want you to move around the space. So if you are the shape of a ball, then how would you move around? And also, while moving, I want you to think of the sounds that this new you would make. Do you have actual speech, like human speech? Can you form sentences that we form? Like, do you have the same language? Or do you have a different language? Or do you just make sounds that are incomprehensible? What would you do to communicate? Or what would be your everyday kind of sound? Maybe you're a creature that constantly emits sound. Non-stop. And maybe you're a creature that is really loud, and maybe you're a creature that is really, really, really small and really slow and barely creates a sound. Maybe you talk with your feet and not with your mouth, or I don't know. If you don't have any organ that could produce sound, that's also fine. Just go with your version of you and just move through the space and make, if possible, make sounds that fit this new version of you. Think of this new version of you never having been in the space that you're in right now. And if you have eyes or a visual, like a vision sense organ, then where is it located, or where are they located? And how do you watch or see? and let that allow you to move through the space. And if you have a nose, or if you can smell as this creature, as this you, then how do you smell and how good do you smell? Do you have an extremely good sense of smell so that everything is overly saturated, or is it not so developed and you have to go really, really close in order to smell something? Discover the room like that. Like how does this room smell to you, to this new you? And maybe while you're moving and smelling or seeing, comment on it in your new language, in your new sound language. Like, ooh, this smells good. How would you say that in your new you, as your new you? And think about the sounds as well. Like, how do you hear? How do you listen? How do you react to sound? Does it frighten you? Are you louder than any other sound in the room? Just really dig into that potential of a new sensing being, a new sensorial being that is completely, utterly unique. And of course, if this being tastes, not with a tongue, but with some other body part or in some other way, go around tasting the room. Please taste the room. Yes. Go through all the tastes of the room. Something that we as humans don't really do, but as this new you are highly encouraged to do that. Actually, maybe this is the way that keeps you alive. Maybe you don't rely on your sight as much. Maybe you rely much, much more on your sense of taste. So detect the danger and detect the good stuff that lies ahead of you. I'll give you one more minute just to continue exploring. And just as a last thing during this exploration, think of everything that's in the room as something that you might want to interact with as well. And maybe you have some sort of communication with it, or maybe you even want to make friends with one or two or three things in this room, because maybe these items are also not what they usually are for you. Like, maybe for your new you, they are of much more importance or of much less importance. Maybe they're poisonous, or they are sweet, or just go around and have fun. Okay, I hope that you manage to be curious and follow your instincts, and you can come back into the space as the you that you most of the time are, I assume. The human you. So transition from whatever you have just been into, well, yeah, your everyday you. The human you, as I said. You have probably you have a head with two eyes and a nose and a mouth with a neck, shoulders with arms and fingers, a chest, front and back side to it, a rib cage that holds you upright, and so on and so forth. So really complete your transformation back into your everyday you. Whatever that looks like for you, whatever that feels like for you. Now, I hope you have a little bit of space, because the next part, it also works on the spot, but it is slightly more possible, or it is slightly more fun. I don't know if I can say that, because maybe it isn't. I've only ever done it outside, on the street, or in the forest, or on the beach, so I don't know how easily it will work inside a room where there is furniture and spatial restrictions, but I'm sure we can make it work. Now, the inspiration here is, if you know it, and if you don't, I just highly encourage you to go and look it up. It is the Monty Python Silly Walk. So, to give you a little bit of an idea, for those of you that do not know it, in the Flying Circus of Monty Python, there is, so that's a series, and there is something called the Ministry of Silly Walks. And there is a scene where you have a minister walking to his office in a silly walk. And basically, he talks about how his journey to his office takes every day a bit longer, because his silly walk is getting better and better, and that means that his journey takes longer because, you know, there is a lot more to do in between. And also he meets somebody in his office who makes a request for funding to develop his silly walk. Now, that person, when he shows his current version of the silly walk, he's not really that silly, and he gets also called out for it. But he ends up receiving the funding so that he can actually explore his silly walk. Now, we will not have any financial funding for that, but I think we don't need that. We will just go on and walk in the most silly way that we can possibly imagine. And now, walking, you really do not only need legs for that. And as maybe some people might know, you can go from A to B without feet or without legs. So whatever works for you, or however you want to do it, and if that is also upside down, or I don't know, please be creative. Use all your curiosity that you have and just start walking around the room. I have to say that my particular silly walk has been developed while I was working with children, and we would go on plenty excursions into the forest, and there was lots and lots of walking involved, and sometimes you get really rather tired, but you have to keep on going because you have a schedule and you have to go with all these children through the forest, and it's not always easy to have everyone come along with you because, as I said, you get tired and then you want to have a break and then you get bored or whatever. And to motivate both the children and myself to keep going, I just started walking in a very silly way. And we would just, well, not everybody wanted to participate because some were rather self-conscious, but I hope that you're not, especially in the dark, especially being on your own, most probably. But even if not, please, please, please do not think that somebody is going to judge you for it, and definitely do not judge yourself. You are just going to have incredible fun if you let go of any sort of normal, quote-unquote, version of walking, the one that you are supposed to use every day to go to work, to school, or whatever it is that you're doing. And now just make this walk the most fun it could possibly be, the most silly it could possibly be, so that if you would go to the Ministry of Silly Walks, you would get big funding. Like, you would get ginormous amounts of money to continue working on this silly walk and to maybe even sell it to others. I don't know, in the capitalist world that might work. But most of all, yeah, to develop, I don't know, maybe it's not to sell it. Maybe the funding is a happiness funding. So your happiness levels, your endorphins, they grow with the growth of your silly walk. So yeah, just walk and be silly. Oh, and also, please don't forget that your face is part of your walking. So yeah, your facial expressions, add them to it and add some sounds. Again, go for it. Be silly. And if your walk is a very loud, stompy walk with a really wide open mouth where you scream from the top of your lungs, don't be afraid, just do it. I mean, unless you have children that might wake up because you're too loud, or you have some neighbors that will come and knock on your door, just do it. And even if they do come and knock on your door, just tell them, try it out, be silly, do the silly walk. Invite them in and be silly together. And while you're walking, remember that you are exposed to sounds and smells and things that you see. So you are reacting to all of your sensorial input during your walk. So just don't forget that you're not just locomoting through space, but you're actually interacting with the entire space. And if there is no smell, which would be rather unusual, but if there isn't, or you can't really distinguish it, you can always imagine that there is something in the room that smells in a particular way. Maybe it doesn't smell good and you want to avoid it, or, you know, as it so happens, sometimes in our everyday lives, there might be things in the way that make sound, or that smell, or that, you know, affect the way you walk. And just let those things appear. If there aren't any particular ones, just let them appear in your imagination. Okay, now come back to this world. Transition back into the here and now again. At least I would suggest you do that. You can, of course, always prolong your imaginary situation and your silliness. Please be my guest. I also encourage you to not just do this today or just during the practice, but go for it. Use the outdoors one of these days, maybe more than once, and try it out when, I don't know, when there's nobody or when there's other people, and see how they react. I really, really want you to try it out. Of course, I'm not going to tell you you must, because there is no such thing. You never must do anything. But if you dare, really, I would just say, do it. And just enjoy what happens next.